Hello everyone and welcome to this prologue to the Skyrim Let's Play, the Alistair Claremont Let's Play. I wanted to make this video to talk a little bit about the mods that I'm going to be using in the Let's Play, or that I am using right now. Just so that I don't have to cover it in future videos, at the beginning of videos, I will update you if anything changes significantly. But for right now, this is pretty much the setup that I've been using, and probably will be the setup that I use for the rest of the rest of the time. So, to go over some of the visual mods, I'm using the Skyrim 2K HD Textures packs. I'm also using the aMidianBorn Landscape 2K HD pack. And as this guy flies over, hello, sir. I'm actually going to take that off, and as you can see here, I'm using Immersive HUD, which is very nice. Just going to turn all the transparencies all the way down. Makes for easy video creation. Oh, behind the scenes. I've turned off the collision in the God mode, so I can just do this. In response to this, I'm also using Bellyache's HD Dragon Replacer, which updates the visuals of the dragons, and I would go chase that guy, but I don't want him to attack us the entire time. So yeah, those are the visual mods. I'm also using Pure Waters, and as a lighting overhaul, and I believe an audio overhaul as well, I'm using RCRN, the Anniversary Edition, which is a very nice visual overhaul. It's served me very well. I believe I'm using the pure version of that, which will make the interiors of dungeons a little bit lighter and make the nights not quite as dark as the darker versions. Other things, I'm actually part of the changes I've made visually are big impact on performance, so I've done a couple things to reduce that impact, things like adding pine needles FX, rainfall FX, and snowfall FX, and that basically what that does is it changes the size of the textures that are used for snow and rain and the needles and the leaves and things like that, so that should have a lesser impact, but that's a very small change. I'm also using Skyfalls and Skymills, which are updates that are mods that allow the waterfalls and the windmills in Skyrim to move even when they're in the distant terrain section. And as you can see, like, I don't know about you guys, but I think this just looks really, really nice. For me, obviously I could bump it all up and use an ENB, but then I wouldn't be able to record and the frame rate would be awful. Unfortunately, I don't have the most powerful computer. I'm just recording on my laptop. And as it switches over to nighttime, hopefully, sort of be able to see it. I'm using Enhanced Night, and I'm using High Stars and the Aquamarine Galaxy mods. And those just change the visual of nighttime and the stars, and it's very, very pretty, I guess is the way to look at it. So that is those are all the visual updates that I can think of. Basic mods using things like the unofficial Skyrim patches for Skyrim, Dawnguard, Hearthfire, Dragonborn. Those are pretty much a must. I'm also using various mods for weapons and armors, as we just watch the moon over here. So I'm using the aMidianBorn Book of Silence for armors and weapons, which are very good sort of compilation groups of weapons and armors and things that update some textures and things like that. As you can see, as I pull out my iron sword, well, it's too dark. But if I pull out my iron sword, the textures have been updated. They're a little bit sharper, a little bit crisper, more high def. I'm also using Immersive Armors and Immersive Weapons, as well as better bows, JaySuS Swords, and unique uniques. So a whole bunch of new weapons to be added into the game to give it a bit of variety. I'm also using a couple things like Cloaks of Skyrim and Winter is Coming, which is a cloak mod. So the NPCs, you'll see them walking around in these cloaks, and they'll put them on when it's raining or cold or what have you. And speaking of cold and rain, I'm using a mod called Frostfall. And if you don't know what Frostfall is, you should definitely check it out if you're into modding. It is one of the cooler mods that exists for Skyrim, because you look at Skyrim and it's all freezing and cold and there's snowstorms and all that sort of stuff, but you, as a character in the vanilla game, it doesn't impact you at all. So what Frostfall does is it changes things, so you can now become wet, you can now become cold, and those have serious impacts on your performance. You might lose stamina more quickly, or things like that do less damage. And if you get too cold, you'll die, which is, sad, but also far more realistic. So I like to use that. There are ways to warm up. You can do things like make a tent, or you can put on heavy cloaks and more armor. The more skin you cover, essentially, the more exposure protection you have. So it's a very good mod to have. I'm also using, along with that, a mod called Wet and Cold, which will allow visual things like dripping or breath. When it's cold, you can see your breath, which is really nice. And there you see this is the Aquamarine Galaxy mod, as it goes across the sky. I've just this is how you start Frostfall. You look up at the sky and it starts Frostfall, which is kind of funny. But that's the Aquamarine Galaxy. I've sped up time here in Skyrim. So those are the sort of immersion mods. Oh, thank you. I've completed Frostfall. As you can see here, it's kind of a foggy morning, I guess. And this is, these are the kinds of changes that I wanted to make, where it gives Skyrim it's much more atmospheric. And I think I said that word very strangely. It's much more atmospheric, and it's just a more engaging landscape now than in the vanilla game. So that's what all the visual changes and Frostfall and Wet and Cold are for, just to make it more immersive and more engaging. A couple other things that I have installed for immersion is I also have realistic needs and diseases. So I'll have to drink and I'll have to eat. And as you can see in the top left there, you feel comfortable. That's part of Frostfall. And I don't think, that's the God mode thing. I don't remember what key I had it set up for, but basically I can pull up a menu that will show me how cold I am and how wet I am and all that sort of thing. Now, what we're going to look at here is probably the biggest change to Skyrim as far as mods are concerned that I have. I'm using a mod called Tendo's Skyrim Redone. And to use this, you need the Skyrim Uncapper. And to use a lot of these mods, you also need SKSE, which is the Skyrim Script Extender. So if you're looking into modding a game to this extent, you're going to want to get that, because it is very important. But this is Skyrim Redone, which you might hear me call Skyre. And basically what this does is it's a complete overhaul to the perk system. So we're going to go up here and into, say, Destruction. So you have your basic Novice Destruction, Dual Casting, Apprentice, but when it gets different is when you get further into the trees. So Fire Spells and Augmented Flames, you pick various things, and there's all of these immense number of changes to the perk system. And you can check this out, I believe, on the Skyrim page on Skyrim Mod Nexus, or if you just want to look it up yourself, it has a list of all all the perks and changes. But things like let's find one that is significantly changed. One of the weaponry ones, heavy weaponry. You have your basic barbarian thing. You know, weapons do more damage. But then you have changes for all of the new different kinds of weapons that are in Skyrim, and it does change a whole lot. So, say you have this, you got a warhammer. Alright, well, you can specialize in a warhammer. You have a yari, which is essentially a spearhead, a large spearhead on a pole. So, some sort of pole arm. You can specialize in that. You can specialize in large swords, all sorts of different weapons, great axes, great swords, or battle axes, whatever you want to call them. All sorts of various things, battle staves or staves. You've got all sorts of scimitars and katanas and various other things, long swords and short swords. And it really changes how specific you go about creating your character, how specifically you go about creating your character, and it's very, very in-depth, and it basically allows you to specialize your character to the point of, personally, I think you can make them more immersive, because you have various things. Maybe you've created a warrior character in the vanilla Skyrim. Well, what can you do with that? You can have a war axe, a sword, and a shield. You can have a sword and an axe, and 2 axes, 2 swords, whatever. You have 2-handed weapons, a club or a mace or whatever. That's basically the extent. You can have a couple kinds of swords or axes, 1-handed, or you can have a couple kinds of swords or axes, 2-handed. And what this does, what Skyrim does, is it takes that and makes them all completely specialized. So using a long sword is now different than using a katana, whereas in vanilla it would be the same. Or using a 2-handed war axe is now different than using a greatsword, whereas in Skyrim the only difference is the speed at which they swing and their damage range. So it really changes a whole lot about how the game is played. And if you've watched the introduction video, you heard me talk about Alistair as being a duelist. And that's something that I can now create perks and choose perks for based on his personality and the way that he has trained historically throughout his life as a character. And I can take those character points and now turn them into a gameplay mechanic, and that is why I decided to use Skyrim over various other overhauls for the combat system, simply because of the degree of customization that I get. And here we see Alistair floating in the rain, as you do. But that should be everything. I believe I covered everything, and I just wanted to throw this out there. I do have a couple of other mods that we probably won't see very much of, things like Phenderix's Magic Evolved. Here There Be Monsters, which creates sort of giant monsters in certain areas of the world. And those are sort of things that we might run into, we might not. But it's I wanted to get this mod talk out of the way. Here we see the pop-up for Frostfall. Your exposure has been increased, and your skills are beginning to suffer. You should find a fire to warm up. You can also drink alcohol to reduce your exposure temporarily. And there are also potions and things like that, and by default you will die at very high exposure. So it means you really have to take care of your character more as a person rather than a gameplay tool, which is nice, and I think that'll translate pretty well to the Let's Play. I should have the Let's Play, the first episode, out in a few days, hopefully barring any sort of weird inconsistencies or if anything strange comes up. I should be able to get through that fairly soon. And I'm hoping to release episodes a couple times a week. I don't know. I wanted to try for every other day, but that is a lot of work, especially when you consider I'm looking to make each episode between 40 minutes to an hour. I feel like that's the best length for these sorts of things. I can tell enough story in that length, and not just leave it at a 20-minute piece where I walk through half a dungeon, fight a boss, and then the episode is over, you know. So that's basically what I'm looking for, and with that 40 minutes to an hour, that could take me 2 hours to record, because I'll have to cut some stuff out, all the walking times where nothing happens and things like that. I'll try to make it as entertaining for you guys as I can, and yeah, so look forward to that. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in continuing to watch the rest of the series and not just me talking about random mods, feel free to stop back in. We're going to try to create Alistair into his own story, his own world, which is something that I really want to do with this Let's Play, with this character, is build a narrative. And I think that's very, very important, and that's why this new channel is set up. And if you have any questions about him as a character, decisions he makes in the Let's Play as we go on, feel free to ask a question, leave a comment, or whatever. I will answer those as best as I can, to the best of my ability. And hopefully you guys like it. So until next time, until we begin, I'm gonna get out of here before I freeze to death in the middle of the night flying above a lake in Skyrim. So take care, guys. Feel free to share this stuff with your friends if you like it. And hopefully I'll see you soon.